From Playground by Aaron Beauregard. The wheels were turning inside all their heads, but the one with the dead hamster inside spoke first.
Welcome back to the Reading Room Ruffians, your favorite library podcast. Today, we're doing our last official book chat of 2023, and we have Suzy back with us. Hi, Suzy.
Hello.
This is Mallory, and soon Santa will be coming. I know him. I am joined by my Christmas light of my life, Ariel.
Being with me is like walking in a winter wonderland.
Carla, our supreme overlord, is here continuing her reign.
I don't know how.
We are recording from our library in Jackson County, West Virginia. Zach, a.k.a. Scrooge McDuck, is recording from Seattle, Washington.
I'm sure I'm the light of somebody's life.
Kiko's.
Exactly.
Yeah, you have a dog, you're the light of the
Gosh. Okay. Before we get to it, you can find our Facebook group by searching Reading Room Ruffians Podcast, which is linked to our library's Facebook page at facebook.com/Jackson County Library WV. You should give us a follow on TikTok and Instagram at WVJCO Library, and give our podcast Goodreads page a look, which we have linked in our episode description, along with our personal Goodreads pages. We've also opened a new Instagram account for the Reading Room Ruffians, which is, what's the
That's a good question. Let me look.
handle?
I think it's just Reading Room Ruffians, honestly.
Is it at Reading Room Ruffians?
Reading Room Ruffians.
We love it. Okay, that's simple enough.
Easy peasy.
Yeah. So let's get into it then. Who wants to get us started on our book chat?
I'll go. Since everybody looked at me. Okay, so I've actually read 9 books this month.
Wow.
Yeah. Granted, a lot of them are shorter, so there is that. But the first one I'm going to talk about, I actually finished last night, and it made me cry, which should not happen when you read a horror book. I just want to throw that out there. Okay, so this book is called The Cabin at the End of the World, and it's by Paul Tremblay. And I picked it up because I was out for 2 weeks because I had surgery. And I've heard that Paul Tremblay is really good at horror books. And while it is a very good book, I don't know that I would classify it as horror. Like, I would probably put it as more like not post-apocalyptic because the apocalypse is happening in the book, but
They just call that apocalyptic.
yeah. So I mean, like that's the most I could put it. There is gore in it, but it's not really scary. So there is a movie that came out this year based on this book. I believe it's called Knock at the Cabin Door. That could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. When I got this book, I did not know that there was a movie based on this one. I just picked up this one and another one that I can't remember that I haven't even started yet by Paul. Okay, so it starts off with these 2 gay men and their adopted daughter staying in a cabin in New Hampshire for like a vacation.
Who vacations in New Hampshire? My God, people.
There's like no cell service. There's no internet. There's just a landline. They just kind of wanted to disconnect from the world because they live in a condo in the middle of the city. I think it was like New York they lived in, but they don't really talk about it, so I don't really know for sure.
Yeah.
But this man shows up, and his name is Leonard, and he is talking to the daughter outside and helps her catch grasshoppers. And she's kind of like, she knows she shouldn't be talking to him because he's a stranger, but he's like very friendly and kind of wins her over and stuff like that. And the daughter, she's only like 7 or 8 years old, right? So she's, an 8-year-old essentially. You know how they act. But then 3 other people show up and they're carrying these like homemade weapons, like, baseball bats with nails through them, a shovel that's got like spikes on the handle, like just stuff that's very intimidating. And she gets scared and she runs inside and she tells her parents and they lock the door because obviously that's not good.
Yeah.
And these 4 people are like, hey, we're not here to hurt you. Like, really?
Sure.
Really?
Okay.
But we need your help saving the world. You need to let us in so we can explain. And the 2 gay men, Eric and Andrew, are like, no, that's not happening. And they lock the doors, they lock the windows. Andrew, I believe, is the one who says that they have a gun, that if they don't leave the property, they're going to shoot them or call the cops or whatever, because there is a landline in the cabin. But the 4 people, Leonard, Redmond, Sabrina, and I think it's Adrian is the last one's name. They're like, oh, we're not here to hurt you. We promise we're not going to hurt you. But we did cut the landline. So
Not sketch at all.
no. So they're like, if you don't let us in, we're going to have to break in, and we don't want to do that. So you need to just let us in so we can just talk to you. And they're like, no. All right. So eventually it escalates to the point where they break into the house. And Andrew and Eric fight them. Eric ends up falling, gets a massive concussion. And I can't remember how exactly it happened because a lot of stuff was happening in this book at once. But Andrew and Eric get caught. They get tied to chairs. And Wynn is just like terrified. That's the daughter. She's terrified, obviously. know?
Yeah.
And this is just like the first chapter, guys. Like all this happens within the first chapter. So they explain that they have been given visions and they had no choice, but they had to come to New Hampshire. Like some of these people are from California, right? Traveled all the way to New Hampshire to come to this cabin to see this family specifically, because this family has to choose one of them to sacrifice themselves to stop the apocalypse.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It gets a bit more unhinged. Like, I'm not going to go in depth, but obviously Eric and Andrew are like, that's not happening. Right? So a little time passes and Leonard's like, you have to choose now. Time is running up. You have to do this. They're like, if you don't, then the oceans are going to flood and kill a bunch of people, then a plague is going to happen, and then things are going to fall from the sky, and then there's going to be eternal darkness. Those are the 4 stages of the apocalypse. Well, they still won't choose. And then the 4 people go into like this trance. And I'm not going to say who, but one of them puts on this white mask and kneels on the floor. And the other 3 stand around them. And then they just start bashing his skull in.
Oh.
Right? They murder him. It's crazy. And they said that they had to sacrifice him because Eric and Andrew didn't choose someone to sacrifice. All right. And then they turned on the TV and an earthquake had hit like 3 hours prior and had flooded Hawaii. Well, then while they're watching the news, another earthquake, like 8.9 on the Richter scale, hits in that
Cascadia.
Yeah, Cascadia fault line. And floods Oregon, Washington, California, takes off essentially the entire West Coast.
Wow.
Tons of people died. They watch it on the news.
That's what they think will really happen, too.
Yeah, I knew she would love that.
So this is obviously based in fact, right?
Yes, totally.
Well, Cascadia is anyway.
Yeah.
Anyways, so they're still trying to convince them, and every day, there's a time limit, I guess, to how long they have before they choose, before something else happens, and they sacrifice, like the 4 people that are now 3 will sacrifice one of themselves because there has to be a sacrifice. Okay, this goes on throughout the entire book. Lots of people die.
Yeah.
People you don't want to die.
That's gross.
And then at the end, there is 2 people left. And it gets very sad, very quick. And I ended up crying.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like the last 10 pages, I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then I start crying. And then I get mad about the fact that I'm crying.
Yeah.
If something happens to the little girl, I am going to be really PO'd.
Maybe you should read it.
No. Maybe not.
That girl's dead.
That's a no from me.
That's right. Yeah.
I didn't want to give that away, but Yeah, okay. So if you don't like children getting hurt or dying, don't read the book.
Okay.
But if you like that,
But
read
if
it.
you're into that kind of
Yeah,
thing
there you
like
go.
me, you know, no, I didn't expect it to happen. Granted, it happens in a way it's not very drawn out. So it's like ripping off a Band-Aid. So it wasn't too bad, but still.
Oh, yeah. She dies. It's not too bad.
I mean, she didn't suffer.
Big deal.
Just saying. Anyways, so yeah, that's my latest read.
Okay,
It's pretty good.
so we were talking about how, you got apocalyptic, right? And then you got post-apocalyptic, right? So is every other book that is not apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic, are those all pre-apocalyptic?
I was just thinking the same thing.
I would say yes.
We're obviously living in the pre to almost apocalyptic now. Maybe.
Maybe.
Ooh.
I mean, as long as there's
not
an
a good-
apocalypse eventually, we are technically pre-apocalyptic.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Oh, that's a nice thought.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is.
Okay, well, this is Suzy. And I have read 2 books that are connected by N.K. Jemisin, who has won the Hugo 3 times and a bunch of other awards. Nebula Locus, Goodreads Choice. Fantastic, fantastic author. And she has written a book, well, instead of a trilogy, it's a dialogy.
Duology.
It's 2 books. Duology. Thank you very much. Called The City We Became is the first one. And this guy is on the train heading into Manhattan. And when he gets off, he doesn't know who he is or what's going on. He passes out. People are helping him. And they say, "What's your name?" And he looks up at the subway sign, and he comes out, he just says Manny for Manhattan. And then weird things really start to happen. A big tentacle comes out of the river and totally destroys the Williamsburg Bridge. Nobody sees this happening. They just assume the bridge collapsed. But all these weird tentacly, anemone kind of things, and of course, when you see stuff like that, you think of Lovecraft, start happening all over New York. And nobody can see what's going on. They just know things are not good. And Manny can see it, and he ends up hailing a checkered cab, which there's only a few left now because they're dangerous and they don't use them, and gets in, and this lady that's driving, and she can see this stuff too, but she's not as powerful as Manny. Turns out he is now the avatar for the borough of Manhattan, and he ends up meeting these people, become avatars for each of the boroughs. Brooklyn is a very elegant black lady who is all on the city council. The Bronx is an older woman of Lenape Indian heritage. We've got an Indian immigrant from that's the Queen of Queens now, and various things happen, and they become coming together because the city of New York is being born as with avatars. It's just, the characters are awesome. Each chapter is about how this person became the avatar of the borough, and they were searching for the ultimate New York avatar. And they picture this homeless young man sleeping in a almost like a trance, and they're searching for him. In the meantime, this strange woman in white shows up, and she causes little tentacles and things. There's a lot of Lovecraft in it. But what's amazing is it's not just horror, it's science fiction. There's a lot of the girl from Queens is a math person, and we have all these quantum physics talks, and it's just, this does not sound good the way I'm talking about, but it's fantastic.
She's pulling an Ariel.
Yeah, I'm just going on and on and on. But the characters are terrific, and they're trying to get together and to convince each other that they have to work together. In the meantime, Staten Island has become sentient and she's not happy with the rest of New York and won't help them. And then things get better. The second book comes out. They're trying to get rid of the woman in white who has now planted her city over top of Staten Island. And all the other cities are either saying, well, that's too bad, New York's no good, we don't care. Or especially Amsterdam, who's still mad that the Dutch had to give it up. And you meet, seriously, and you meet all these people, and then they're trying to find the who have created the woman in white to kill cities for some particular reason, and they all get together and help Manhattan. But the characters, I mean, this woman knows about people. They're fantastic books. Don't pay attention to what I'm saying. Just read them, okay?
What's it called again?
Well, The City We Became is the first one. And The World We Make is the second one. It came out in paperback this year. And the covers are great because they've got city photographs with little tentacles running around. I mean, it's sort of like Stephen Hawking meets H.P. Lovecraft. Yes, with a lot of Charles Dickens thrown in. So they're fantastic. So I thought I would do better talking about them, but I'm not, because I don't want to let it all tell everybody what happens, Although, as far as I know, no child dies in the making of these books.
I can't help but like what I like.
There you go. But, I want to, these go in with one of my favorite genres, which are the urban fantasies, but they're beyond that. And they're just, and it like the first one took a while. I'm going, oh God, what's going on? This is really stupid. And the longer you go into it, the cooler it becomes. So there. Done.
It sounds good.
Yeah, it does.
They're fantastic.
Have you read her other books?
No, I got to admit, I was at Books A Million, and there on the sale table was the first one in hardback for $7.98. Okay, there you go. And it looked good, so I bought it. And then I'm going to read of others as long as there's similar, they're just fantastic. And on the cover of the hardback, Neil Gaiman says a glorious fantasy. So that's, although he may never have read it, who knows, that sort of clinched it for me too.
So her other trilogy, I've at least read the first book of. It's called the Broken Earth Trilogy. The first book is The Fifth Season. And I'm like halfway through the second book. I don't know why I stopped it. It's just like I was reading something else, probably for this podcast or whatever. Anyway, though, also very good set of books. Much more fantasy, and her world building and characters are just fantastic in that one too. So definitely check it out. I've been wanting to read this one for a while, the one you're talking about.
Yeah, they're great. They're great. And I really like that because you get into, like I said, the quantum and the people, not only are these people avatars of their boroughs, they're also people with problems like kids and jobs and immigration. And she explains why each one of the boroughs has this particular person as its avatar. And it's just awesome.
I mean, it makes sense. Kids are problems.
Yeah, they can be. Yeah.
That's why you kill them.
I wasn't going to go there, but you went there. I love
Yeah. Yeah, because by the time they're teenagers, it's just gone.
It's all downhill from there.
It says the person who has 3 children at home.
Carla, do you want to go?
I haven't really read a whole lot of them here lately. I finished up that one, Going Home, and then I started the second one, which was Surviving Home, and I'm on the third one now, which is Escaping Home. So you can see how this is going. It is an apocalyptic series of books, and there's been an EMP or a CME or something, but all the electric's gone. The cars won't run, or most of them, that type of stuff. And they're trying to. And FEMA is not the good guy. They're the ones in the Department of Homeland Security are not the good guys in this one. They're rounding people up and putting them in camps and working them.
Can you say Katrina?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty much.
Are we surprised?
No, but there's a group of Army. There's a large group of the Army that's kind of starting to fight against them. So we'll see how this one turns out. They're getting ready to bug out of their home right now. So,
Well, that's based, in fact, the great EMP is coming. You know, every 11 years you've got the sun cycle, and it's going to be another Carrington event. Speaking of which, there's a fantastic nonfiction book called The Sun Kings that talks about scientists in the 1800s who have been studying the all of this stuff, and it's really good science history. And Carrington was the guy that talked about this. And there was an event that was so bad in the 1800s that it shocked and nearly electrocuted telegraph operators. So, yeah, and from the sunspots. So can you imagine what it'll do to, there'll be satellites falling out of the sky like rain. Yeah. Back to the 50s.
it's true. I mean, not only can we do CMEs, like with nuclear explosions in the atmosphere, but the sun tosses out this stuff every so many years, and we're probably overdue.
Watch. It'll happen as soon as I get me another car.
So,
and then my car will stop working.
Now, that we were definitely pre-apocalyptic.
exactly. We're pre-apocalyptic that way. And just to clarify, we can do EMPs, not CMEs. Just have.
I thought I said EMP.
You said CME the second time. You're fine. CME is the corona mass ejection for the podcast listeners. Also, the Carrington event was from 1859, and it was basically...
That's it.
The largest coronal mass ejection in recorded history. And if one happened right now, it would wipe out a significant portion of all of our electronics.
Yeah. That's why I still have CDs.
Don't we just love a little know-it-all?
No, but if you, that nonfiction book, The Sun Kings, about these scientists, is a terrific science history book, which is another one of my favorite genres. So read it. Although, obviously,
Not
he already...
threatening or anything, so read it.
But he already has.
Save yourself now. Read the book. Be prepared.
Suzy's coming for you.
That's right.
She's brandishing her coffee at us.
That's right. I haven't had enough.
Zach, do you want to go?
Sure, I'll go.
Yeah.
All right.
Good. Get out of here.
So, ha. I just finished up a book yesterday. Yes.
Is this the one that you just reviewed on Goodreads?
Yes.
It was so funny.
It was funny, my review.
Your review was.
Yeah.
Let me even see what I wrote about it, because I don't remember. So this is called Norwegian Wood. It's by Haruki Murakami, and it's like hailed as one of like the best books ever written. It's like a classic of Japanese literature, and it is absolutely miserable. I mean, I don't understand why people like this. If you have been following the podcast for a while, you know that I don't like certain kinds of books, and this is one of them. Like if like The Magicians, everybody in that one's miserable. Hate that book. The one I talked about, I think last book talk, general book talk, was The Secret History with the miserable college students. Hated that one too. This one, oh my god, it feels like a bad anime, honestly, like one of those harem animes. So the premise is you have this main character who's looking back on his life. His name is Toru something. I can't remember what his last name is. Anyway, and basically he's just this kind of whatever blank slate character. He has some vague interests, like he's vaguely interested in music. He's vaguely interested in English literature, which is what his major's in or something like that. some sort of literature. Anyway, and he like name drops The Great Gatsby all the time, stuff like that. This is just, he's kind of a little bit pretentious. I wouldn't know anything about being pretentious. But...
Oh my god, I literally just pointed at the computer. I was like, so it's him?
I'm a different kind of pretentious, thank you. Anyway, so he goes about his life. He's in college. He doesn't have like hardly any friends. He's got like one friend who is just a total dirtbag. He's in this committed relationship, sleeps around all the time. His girlfriend knows about it. She's not happy about it. He's just the worst. His name is Nagasawa. And then he meets a bunch of these women in there, right? In the book, and they all just like have the super hots for him because it's a harem anime apparently, and he's like got no personality, so I don't know why they do, but they all think he's like super interesting. They all fall into like these really bad tropes, right? Just like very generic sort of tropes. The dude can't write women to save his life. They're basically just like, you know, sex objects the whole time. They speak a lot, but they don't really have realistic or, you know, reasonable personalities. They're just like super hot for this guy all the time. It's very strange. But the book itself is like
a fantasy then.
It is like that, but it's also just miserable and depressing the whole time because I think there are a grand total of 4 suicides in this book. The book starts off with him talking about how his best friend when he was in high school committed suicide just out of nowhere. Or seemingly out of nowhere. It's like one of those things where that is one thing that he does do correctly, I think, which is when people commit suicides, generally, a lot of the time it can be something that comes out of nowhere for the people who are close to them, right? So this is the same sort of thing. But the girlfriend of the guy who committed suicide is his main love interest for the duration of this book. And she goes to a sanatorium for the vast majority of the book. I don't know. It's like Murakami's writing, fantastic. It's absolutely beautiful. But the characters in the story are all absolutely miserable, and I just hate it. It's the worst. Some of the characters are okay. They're somewhat likable, but then they do weird stuff, or their backgrounds are super freaky, or I don't even know. It's a difficult book. If people like miserable characters with quote-unquote realistic depictions of people's lives, then sure, maybe that would be a good book for you. But if you like, I don't know, a story, or if you like characters that are not the worst,
likable characters,
then I would say if you like either of those things, don't read this book. I mean, he's got other good books. He's got one that's called A Hard-Boiled Wonderland. That one's fantastic. Very weird, very interesting. This one, absolutely miserable. Don't read this book. It's the worst. 2 stars. Would not recommend.
So, is he a Beatles fan? Is that why the title, or Norwegian Woods?
Murakami is a Beatles fan. Murakami's a very particular music type person. He really likes music. It gets incredibly pretentious about it, apparently. I think he wrote a book. Literally, he wrote a book where the main character, it might have actually been a self-insert, I have not read this book, talks to a composer for like 200 pages. And that's the book.
Oh.
Well,
I've got Norwegian Wood stuck in my head now. Thank you very much.
I didn't actually listen to it until after I finished the book. I probably should have. It's fine.
Oh my god.
Kids today, what are you going to do?
Anyway, so that's my book, my first one. So somebody else should pick something else good.
I have only read 3 books since our last book chat, but they've all been like over 30 hours. So, whatever. The first one I want to talk about is The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman. This one was really fun. It's a library that is kind of between worlds, and they send librarians. Librarians are kind of like badass spies.
We already are.
I mean, yeah, we are. But like,
this is what we call fiction.
Travel to, we don't get to travel to different worlds. Like,
watch it, Zach.
We're coming for you, okay? Quit. No.
In the dead of the night.
And so what happens whenever they send librarians out, they go into these worlds. It's just a multiverse. Like you go to, basically it's the same world. There's just different timelines that happen, certain things happen, whatever. And they have to go into these worlds to find, usually they go to get like a really rare book. Like in this book, the main character goes to find a very specific, once in the whole multiverse version of the Brothers Grimm books. And it's a whole big wild ride. So the world is about to be taken over by what they call chaos, which is essentially just everything bad. Dragons kind of keep everything in the balance, but they have not been seen in this world whatsoever. And the library is just kind of like, why? We don't really understand. And so they send this librarian she's not new, but she's like younger than a lot of other librarians. And they also send her with an apprentice who is like fresh, not even like an initiate yet to the library. And she's just kind of like, what? And she figures out that this is actually like a really big deal. Like this mission that they've sent her on. And they're like, why would they send me with a brand new, like fresh person? Like this makes no sense. Something is wrong with this. And it's just a whole nefarious thing. They get to the world, and the person who was supposed to have had the copy of this book was murdered. He was a vampire, and vampires, werewolves, like they're all like out in this world. And it's wild. It's a wild ride. And a lot of really crazy stuff happens. And I messaged Ariel at one point and I was like, this book series reminds me a lot of the Rook series. I loved those books, and this felt like that.
I'm going to be honest. I do not remember you messaging me, and I was sitting here thinking, why the heck have you not told me about this book?
What?
Where have I been?
I don't know, lady, but I did.
How many weeks ago was this?
It's been, I read it, like, let me see here.
It does feel a lot like the Rook
like,
series.
Beginning of November.
That's why.
So, yeah.
Things went
Yeah.
crazy in my life.
Yeah. It's been...
Okay, so now you know why I haven't had time to read or keep up with the schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, what's it called again?
The Invisible Library. And it's not a new book series. Let me see, this one came out in like 2016 or something like that. 2014. I don't know why I've never heard of this, but it's amazing. And there's like 8 books. It's a complete series. And it sounds so much fun. And I loved a lot of the characters. It was all fun. And everybody she meets, everything she does, it's just like a whole, it's so much fun. There was a lot of the fun British humor that we loved about The Rook. Yeah. It was that kind of, because it's all just crazy stuff that happens, and they're just like, oh, well, you know.
Man, I've really wanted another book similar to The Rook. So
this feels like that. And also there's like, but the library aspect of it, which is really, really cool.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I'm excited to read it.
Yeah. I'm super pumped to continue the series. So there's...
Yay! Okay. So I will talk about 4 books at once because it's the same series. And I love them all. Okay. So I started rereading the Murderbot series.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And they're fresh, man, so I can talk in detail about them. But I got the 7th book. I pre-ordered it for myself like in September and forgot about it. So then I got it for my birthday and it was the best.
Yep.
Love that. Love when I think about things like this. But I was like, it's been over a year since I've read these, so I figure I'll reread them before I get to the 7th one. So I haven't read that yet. Though I do want to say that it is in the Goodreads voting thing for best books. So I voted for it, even though I haven't read it yet, because it's Murderbot, and I know it'll be fantastic.
I didn't, just because Stolen Air was also in that list.
I didn't have that on there.
Oh, I did.
What the heck?
That's what I was like. I sat there looking
No, because like Murderbot was in science fiction, and the Stolen Air, I think, would be fantasy.
I don't know.
Was it in the final voting?
Yeah.
What the heck, Goodreads?
I don't know.
Okay, anyways.
Anyway, yeah.
Back to this. Okay, so the 4 books. The first one is All Systems Red. The second is Artificial Condition. The third is Rogue Protocol. And the fourth is Exit Strategy. I am on the 5th one right now, but I haven't finished it. But so it starts off with what is called a sec unit. He's like a security robot cyborg type deal. Like he has organic parts is what he says. Like he has a brain. He has some skin, some organs, but most of him is robot. And he has like an interface and like a hard drive essentially all up in his brain. And he has a bunch of weapons like inside his body, and he can like hack a bunch of things. But they have these things called governor modules in their brains. And if they don't follow orders, the governor module will punish them in some way. But he hacked his. So now he doesn't have to follow orders. But he continues to follow orders because all he wants to do is just sit around and watch TV shows. He doesn't want to go on like a murderous rampage and kill all humans, which is what they think would happen if there's a rogue sec unit. That's what media and everything says happens. All he wants to do is just ignore people, not have emotions, and watch TV all the time, which I get that. Like, I love him so much. Now, in the book, they never say that if it's a guy or a girl, but I listened to the audiobooks, and the audiobooks are narrated by a man. So in my head, he's a man. I know Zach read the first one, and he thought Murderbot was a girl.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, so it's completely up to interpretation because they never refer, because he does not have any like sexual organs. He only grows hair on his head and his eyebrows. Like, they are very Barbie doll Ken-esque, if that makes sense. So anyways, so this book starts off, he is protecting this group of researchers who are on a planet, and his job is just to keep his clients safe. That's all he has to do. And most of the time he stands around watching media while also protecting people. Because he can, like, his brain just works like that. He can do all these different things at once. And he ends up saving them from, like, this animal on this rogue planet that's trying to eat them, you know? And they find out that some of the other researchers from different companies on this planet aren't responding to their help because one of their ships was damaged. So they're like, we're going to go over there and we're going to check. And he's like, don't do that. That's stupid. But he also doesn't want them to know he hacked his governor module, so he has to go along with it. They go over there and find out that, you know, everybody's been murdered. Fun times. And this company called Grey Chris is like killing people, trying to steal alien technology and junk like that. Right? So by the end of the book, the first one, everything turns out okay. Ish. Ish. And his clients decide to purchase him from the company that he was being rented from. And he leaves. Like, he yeets himself out of there. He's like, I'm not going to be a pet robot. So he leaves. So the second book is about him traveling and trying to figure out why he murdered a bunch of people. Because prior to being bought, he had worked for another company and something happened and he killed all his clients. And he doesn't know why, because they memory wiped him. Because they wanted to reuse him for other things, because they're expensive. Because they're not people, they're property. So this is where he meets my other favorite robot, Art, which stands for what it actually stands for is not what he says it stands for. He says it stands for asshole research transport.
I had to bleep that out last time you wrote that. Said that.
And he is sassy. I love him. So Art is essentially a sentient ship, right? Murderbot gets on this ship and is like gonna go to this planet where he murdered people. It is not killer whale. It's not. So while they already leave the docking station and they're on the way, and Art is like, if you try anything, I will fry your system.
Whoa.
And Murderbot's like, what is happening right now? right? And Art is like so incredibly smart and has so much processing systems, and like he could easily fry Murderbot in like 0.3 seconds, like take no time. Well, Art loves his humans, and Murderbot is like, no. Humans are a pain. And Art ends up getting Murderbot to talk about his feelings to the clients that purchased him. And he doesn't like it. Like, he's like, I don't like that I'm having emotions. I don't like that I have to think about this. He's like, I just want to watch media. That's all I want to do.
What's his favorite show, did they say?
The Rise and Fall of Sanctuary Moon. Yeah, that's his favorite.
Not Andy Griffith's show.
No. No. But so that's what the second book's about. Like him and Art kind of meeting each other, and then him going to that planet and working as a security consultant who is an augmented human. He's not a sec unit. Well, he is a sec unit, but he's pretending to be an augmented human. And he ends up really liking his clients that he goes to this planet with that he's protecting. And that's starting to bother him because he's like, why am I liking these people? So he keeps them safe, gets what he needs, and leaves. That's the second book. I'm trying not to go too in detail so people can, enjoy. So the third book, let me see. I don't want to get third and fourth confused. Okay. Third book, he goes to this planet called, I think it's Milu. And he's trying to do some research on this company, Grey Chris, because they're suing his owner, for lack of a better word. Mensa is her name. And he's like, no, that's not happening. She's nice. So he goes to this planet, and while he's there, he meets a pet robot. Her name is Mickey, and she thinks her humans are the best humans ever. And he's like, this is weird. I don't like this. Why? I don't want to be a pet robot. I don't want to be like Mickey. Well, he ends up saving Mickey and Mickey's humans because Grey Chris, once again, is trying to murder people. So he goes and kills a bunch of people and does his thing because he has no qualms about killing humans. He's like, if you're going to be dumb, you're going to get what's handed to you. And he's amazing because he's like, he says that his job as a sec unit is to throw himself at the problem and hope that he comes out alive. That's just what he does. And then, so that book's all about that. And then the fourth book, he finds out that Mensa has been kidnapped by Grey Chris. So, guess what? He throws himself at the problem.
And kills a lot of people.
And kills some people and, saves the day. But that's why that one's called exit strategy. And he's like, we got to figure out what our exit strategy is. Because he runs into Penley and some of the other people from the original group. And they're mad at him. They're like, we were worried about you. And he's like, I'm not a human. And they're like, I forgot how much of an asshole you are. And he's like, yeah. So, through the whole book series, he's like that. He's very sarcastic. He's very sassy. But you see him grow and develop over time where he starts getting these emotions and starts realizing that there's certain people who are important to him. And he even at one point says that he really misses Art because Art is his only robot friend. Yeah, it's very sweet. So yeah, so I'm on the fifth one now, and it's obviously amazing because Murderbot's amazing, and everybody should read it. Was that enough for you?
Yeah, I love it.
I got nothing else because I'm still working on the escaping home, and all the other librarian stuff you do.
And we're so glad you do it.
Yes.
I've got another one. 1 second. Let me see what it's called.
Seriously, I talked all that time. You couldn't be ready.
I was doing something else.
Wow. Look at that. He wasn't even paying attention to it.
I know what it was.
And you're all like, I want to read the rest of that series. And then you don't even listen. We talked about this just the other day on the phone.
I know that's the reason I didn't want to listen to it because I didn't want to hear about all your spoilers that you were doing.
There wasn't that many
You tell me the premises of the
God.
books. That's a spoiler right there. All right.
I feel that. That's why we don't read the backs of books.
Exactly. So
That is chaos.
I finished the Archive Undying.
Oh, yeah.
So I can say at least a couple things. So previously, Mallory had brought this up, and I said it sounded dope, and it sounded like Horizon Zero Dawn. And it is only vaguely like Horizon Zero Dawn. But she was also mentioning how it was difficult to figure out what was going on. And oh my god, it is so difficult to figure out what the world is going on in this book.
I'm really glad it
It's
wasn't
not just
me.
you, and it's not because you aren't familiar with mecha type junk. There's nothing like that in here. This is its own unique sort of idea,
Yeah.
at least the way it's written.
I still haven't read it, and it was my book club pick. And I still have not read it.
It is very, the prose is pretty good. The characters are all pretty interesting and likable. The issue is this author plays with perspective in such weird ways that it's halfway impossible to tell who in the world you're even with at a specific time. Right?
Yeah.
You've got the main character who at some point becomes connected to another character and then gets connected to a third character. And especially at the end, it's impossible because they're all blended together, and you're like, who in the world is thinking or talking or moving right now? And the characters themselves don't know.
How did it happen?
Yeah, and how it happened. And the characters themselves also don't know who in the world is thinking or talking or moving.
It's weird.
There's all these neural interfaces that happen, but the basic premise is that you have AIs which ran cities, and I don't want to spoil too much of what happens in the book, but the premise is you have these AIs that run cities. For some reason, which I will not disclose, they become corrupted, and when they become corrupted, they don't control the city anymore. They can't, whatever sort of person that they were using as sort of their thing that helps organize their thoughts, right? So the AI is very powerful, but it can't organize its thoughts well. So they have this thing called an archive associated with them, which is a human being who can sort of order everything together, right? And the AI will corrupt at some point, and it will either kill or corrupt the associated archive with it. The main character is an archive who is always reset to the same physical state as when he corrupted, right? So he's got a bad ankle. His bad ankle is always still there, but he can get shot, he can die, whatever. And he always gets reset back to that same physical point, except for his mind, which can still learn and stuff like that, which is a little strange. But they mention that in the book.
That would kind of suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, you can never form any new thoughts. Every time you die, you just get reset back to the same blank slate, which would be an interesting premise for a book, but that's not what this book was. Anyway, and then there are other people who are other archives that they meet, but once these AIs corrupt, a lot of the time what will happen is you have whatever power is there, whatever city-state power is available, will take the AI and put it into basically a robot. Instead of an AI city, it's a robot now that can be controlled like a mecha. If you've ever seen Gundam, some of them sort of look like that, but they don't have to look like that. They can look like whatever. The main one that they're dealing with it's like a shapeshifter type thing. It can change into all kinds of stuff. And it is about basically the two main characters trying to actually destroy what are they called? Do you remember what they're called? The ones that are the AIs that are no longer AIs, they're called something else.
No, I don't remember but they're almost if I had to, so it's kind of like the major AI essentially are like gods, and the next level down, they're more I don't know. I almost want to relate them to animals. They kind of just seem more animalistic and wild, and I don't know if that's because of corruption or...
No, I'm pretty sure that those ones were always like that. So you have the AIs, and then once they get corrupted, they're still functional enough that they can do something else, and that's where they make these mecha suits. And then there are just normal, robotic type things, which or created for some purpose. They don't actually go into what the purposes are, I think, ever.
Yeah.
Right. Presumably they were for some sort of maintenance of the world or something like that. I don't know. But they don't go into it. And they're basically animals. They have some thoughts, but they're basically animals. Like there's a bird one, there's a snake one, there's a sea serpent one. There's ones that are cats. You know.
The cat ones are kind of scary.
Yeah. So it's neat, but they can make these mecha suits, and the whole point is they're trying to kill one of those mecha type AIs for the whole book. They come up with various plans on how to do this, and then they find out something else. There's like a twist, and it's an interesting book. I wish, as Mallory said, it had like some more visuals. Like if it was like a comic or something, or an anime, that would be fine. Yeah. But the way it is written, it is very, very difficult to follow who is thinking and talking, what's going on. The characters in there are great, though.
What's the title again, please?
The Archive Undying by Emma Mieko, or Mieko, probably Mieko Candon.
So there's a Japanese element?
The author, I think, is Japanese.
Well, so you got Mecha Godzilla?
There's not a Mecha Godzilla. There are mech type things, so.
It is kind of, I think it's most of Asia, though, is it not? Because I want to say that they talk about Hong Kong or something, or what used to be, because
I don't remember them mentioning city names.
They go a lot of different places, though. It was something, like, it sounded reminiscent of, like, city names that we would know over there. And I don't think it was just Japan, because they traveled a long way, but I couldn't ever get the real feel, and I don't know.
I don't know. This might not even be Earth.
Yeah, it might not be really, and maybe she just or maybe the author just kind of used different, I guess, feelings or vibes, but yeah, I assumed that it was, and it was just a very far future where the countries were all different now.
Yeah. It could be. It could be like a far future thing. It could be Earth. I don't know. It's definitely not the same sort of Earth that we have. This is very much far in the future, like very far in the future. Yeah. And I don't know. It was an interesting book. I think it was difficult to read, but it was an interesting book. And I wish that there was something accompanying it, some visuals or something like that. Fan art would have been great. There's no fan art for this book. It's not big enough. No. But it was very, very interesting, and I did enjoy reading it, even if I didn't know what was going on sometimes.
Yeah, it was really for me, the middle, I was okay with, and I figured it out, but the beginning and the end, I was just I have no idea. I don't know what's happening here, and I feel so stupid.
I know, you texted me a lot. You're like, I have no clue what's happening in this book.
The ending is...
I'll get to it, and then I never have.
Yeah, no, the ending is particularly difficult to follow, especially the last, 50 pages or so. That last hour or so of the book is just what in the world did I just read?
Well, there was just so much flip-flopping between, who was betraying and who wasn't, and then who betrayed 3 times, but actually only the 1 time counted. I don't know. It got really complicated like that, and then you didn't really know who was who, and I don't know, it was a lot. It was complicated.
It was very complicated. I think it was overly complicated for no reason.
Yeah, but the character interactions, their interactions with each other were great. It was funny. It was witty and sarcastic and great. All of that was great. It just was the actual connections were really difficult to follow.
Yeah. It felt like an experimental type of storytelling almost, and I think that the author was not quite up for that task, personally. Anyway, so that was a good book, though. I suggest people read it just because it's a wild ride and it's very interesting, but don't expect to know what's going on.
Right.
Maybe look up a glossary or something.
We've been at this almost an hour. Do we want to talk about more, or are we good? Because I could definitely talk about another one.
We've been about an hour.
2 left,
we could do if we do one more brief discussion of what.
Brief. Brief.
Not 20 minutes, Ariel.
Let Mallory go because she hasn't done one.
That's right. But I know. But like, I'm just saying, I didn't know if we wanted to keep going or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last two that I'm going to I'm going to talk about are books 5 and 6 in the Throne of Glass series, and I'm actually finishing number 7. Well, I'm in the middle of it right now. 5 and 6 so far have kind of just broken me. I wasn't really expecting that. A lot of the characters really grew on me in book 5, especially. I want to say, yeah. Yeah, basically my review says, no one told me I'd be shipping the whole stinking crew, and then all caps, Grace, because she made me read them.
We're going to have to let her know you called her out.
I did, yeah. I've messaged her a few times. I'm just like, I don't like you for this. I've had to make her tell me certain people are not dying, like, at all. I was like, I need to know right now, because I will quit.
I feel that.
What's the name of this series again?
It's called Throne of Glass, and it's by Sarah J. Maas, who wrote Akotar. What? Okay. Anyway, not a big fan of that series, but these are way better. Feyre wishes she could be Selena Sardothian. That's all I'm going to say. I love her. She is such a butthead, and she is so just absolutely sure of herself. She is a badass, and she's very funny, sarcastic, and it's a whole wild ride. So 5 and 6, I think it's book number 6. Yeah. Book number 6 ends kind of in a really bad spot, and you're just kind of like, there's no way we can come back from any of this. And book 7 starts in that really dark place, and it's horrifying. It's just absolutely, it just broke my heart a million times. I sobbed on the way to work this morning because
she really was. I called her. I was like, do you want anything? And she's like, I'm so happy you called.
I'm sobbing. Yeah. Like, it just has been like, I got really attached to everybody in book number 5, and it's just gotten worse since we've gone on. And so a lot of things are kind of falling apart and then also coming together in other ways. And it's just, it's really, I don't know how I still have hours of this book left. And I do. And oh my God. Yeah. I like this series a million times better than I ever wanted to like Akotar. I didn't really want to like that one anyway, but this is way better. The characters are better. All of them. Not like I like a lot of these characters, and a lot of them are really, arrogant and flashy, and they know everything, but they don't. But it grows on you, and they're actually good people once you get into the books. So that's my review of those. I do recommend this one. Yeah, surprising.
I will not read them.
That's fine.
Akotar ruined me. I hate those books. Hate them.
I've heard that before.
With undying passion.
And Grace will say that she told us to read those first because we would like them the least. So we'll give her that credit, but
I despise them.
It took me a very long time.
Like undying passion of 1,000 white hot suns. That's how much I hate these books. I would set them on fire.
Then why did you read them all?
I read them. I hate them.
We did.
I read them so I could tell Grace how much they suck.
That's pretty much
and
exactly.
And so everybody who comes into the library and they're like, oh, I love Akotar. I'm like, no.
Stop it.
It's the worst. You're wrong. I will not shush you, but I will call you out.
I have never heard you say that to anybody.
You obviously didn't hear me talk to Savannah or Kendra.
Oh, that doesn't count.
And anytime someone checks it out, I look at Mallory and I go,
yeah, we make eye contact and we're just like.
We do the what's that face called? Sturgeon face or something like that. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Anyways, yep. Okay. Anyways, now that we're done with that. The last book I'm going to talk about real quick. It's called Our Hideous Progeny. What? Don't give me that look.
Oh, did you actually finish it?
Don't. I did. I told you all I would come back when I finished it and talk about it. But it's by C.E. McGill. Super, super good. It took me forever to read because I just don't have time to read. But essentially, think Frankenstein, but better. So there's this lady and her husband, and they're in the science community, but obviously this is back in like, I guess the 1800s. So women have like essentially no clout at all for anything. But she has the idea to recreate a dinosaur to see if it walks like this other man said it did that her husband disagreed with. Anyways,
wait, did you
so
say a
she
dinosaur?
a dinosaur.
That's a way to
I
prove
can't-
someone wrong. Wow.
Yeah, really. I can't remember. I don't know if it says in the description what dinosaur it is. I can't remember. But anyways, I love that she's like, oh yeah, watch this. But she is like the great niece or the great great niece of Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein. So at the end of the book, she ends up going by Frankenstein instead as her last name. Yeah, so like love that. But she ends up having to work with her husband and one of her husband's colleagues who she despises, like hates this man. She would feed him to the dinosaur. Like she hates him.
I get that on a very personal level.
And you know what? You would love her. You need to read this book. You would love her.
Yeah. What's the name again?
Our Hideous Progeny. Anyways, so they do end up making the dinosaur. That does happen. They make it come alive, and she loves this thing. Like she sits there and it puts its little head on her lap and she feeds it fish. Like they love each other, right? I don't want to give it away, but crap hits the fan at one point. The guy she hates steals the dinosaur. She goes after, well, she and her husband's sister goes after it. Her and her husband's sister get real close. Fairly certain she's a lesbian.
I remember you told me about this too.
You know, obviously back in that time, the 1850s is when
They were just roommates.
They were just roommates. They're just good friends. Her husband ends up going to jail for a little bit. And so she goes and stays with her husband's sister.
Convenient.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. All right. But anyways, it's good. And she, they were going to take the dinosaur to like a scientific talk type deal to prove. But by the end of the book, she's like, I just want it to be safe. I just want it to be taken care of. I don't want it to be poked and prodded and yada, yada, yada. Very, very good book. I definitely suggest people read it. And it does give you the Frankenstein vibes, you know, so it's good. I think I gave it 5 stars. Did take me for like months to finish this book because I just didn't have time to sit and read, but it is good.
You know what I voted for instead of, let me see here, System Collapse, Murderbot 7, In the Lives of Puppets. That's what it was.
Okay, I'll give you that.
I knew it was one of,
because you haven't read Murderbot yet.
Yeah, I haven't. Which I sat there for a minute and was like, am I going to do this? Yeah.
You haven't read Murderbot. I'll let you have it.
Yeah.
You need to read it.
I really do plan to.
She was all like, we can reread them, or she could read them while I reread them together. But she was reading like a 30-hour book. And I was like, I'm not waiting. So now I'm 4 books in, and I think you just got done with that book.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
get on it.
I'm trying. So
All
I
right.
think that's us. Are we all wrapped up? Zach, anything else?
I'm done. My coffee's gone, so yeah.
Briefly mention the book I read. It was have I talked about the Saturday Night Ghost Club?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Saturday Night Ghost Club. I read that for Spooky Month. Obviously, it was pretty good. It was a fun little book. It's basically you've got some kids and their uncle who takes them out to spooky locations to talk about some ghost stories there, and it's just a nice little coming of age type story. It's got some twists in it. It's very cute most of the time. I liked all the characters. It's a fun little book. Check it out, guys, for Spooky Month next time.
All right.
Cool.
Our next episode, we will be discussing some of our favorite Christmas traditions and memories. So get your hot chockies ready, guys. We're going to dive in, and it'll be fun. I think after that, we have decided to do one final like deep dive read as a whole group. We're going to read This Is How You Lose the Time War. And I'm actually pretty excited about it. It's a nice little short book. We're going to break it into 2 like we did for Scythe. And I think after that, we're going to do a live a live episode for New Year's around in there. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to do that in our podcast group
On
on
Facebook.
Facebook. And then I think we will just be putting the audio out here on the podcast for you guys after that. But it'll be really fun live. So definitely join us for that. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. It's time for us to sign off. But before we go, only the best libraries have librarians who don't shush you because we're too busy jingling some bells.
Jingle, jingle.